Karen, we clean up well.
Trying to put more light on my face.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started in a minute or two as everyone joins the webinar. Thank you to everyone that signed up, and thank you for everyone that is present. There's going to be a lot of information that we're going to be putting in the chat. So make sure that if you have questions, put it in the chat. If you want to introduce yourself, use the chat to introduce who you are, what you offer, and what you bring to the table. We want to make sure that we keep this as interactive as we possibly can. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start sharing my screen with the presentation so we can go ahead and get started. So welcome, everyone. So today we're going to be talking about writing a winning government proposal. So for all of you that joined us yesterday, welcome back for part 2. If you didn't get to join us yesterday, we will be uploading the presentation in a couple of days so that you can go back and review some of the content information that we shared yesterday. So let's go ahead and on behalf of the SBDC at FIU Business, we want to welcome everybody. Thank you for registering. Thank you for taking part of your busy schedule. We are going to make sure that we have a hard stop by 2 p.m. because we want to be mindful of your time, but feel free to ask questions once we go ahead and get started. So before I start talking or continuing to talk, I want to turn it over to our panelists so that they can introduce themselves. So Jonelle.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for the invite. Happy to be here to support the SBDC at FIU. I'm Janelle Hine, the District Director for the SBA in the North Florida District Office in Jacksonville, and we support the upper 43 counties of the state of Florida.
All right, thank you. Dr. Vieira.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Karen Vieira. I am owner of the Med Writers. As it sounds, we do medical writing and we are a government contractor. Hence why I've been invited to have a seat here as a panelist today. Excited to share all of my mistakes I've made and the ways to not make those mistakes.
All right, thank you. And then Althea Harris. You're on mute, Althea.
Really? Okay. Anyway, good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be with you. I'm Althea Harris. I am the Deputy District Director here in the South Florida District Office of the SBA. Delighted to have been included today. Looking forward to our conversation to empower you and help you to win that contract. Thanks, Orlando.
All right, thank you. So Orlando Espinosa with M&L Media. When people ask me to describe myself, I say really simple. I am a simplifier of information. I think that as business owners, we tend to overthink, overcomplicate. And when we put these webinars together, workshops, it's understanding that as a business owner, we tend to overcomplicate things because we overthink. So what we want to do within the next hour that we're going to be together is that we want to simplify the essence. Yesterday, we talked about doing business with the federal government. Today, we're going to talk about writing a winning government proposal and how to write it. We're going to share some insight to what it is that you can do, should do. But we always want to come in and recap some of the stuff that we talked about yesterday. You know, does the government really buy what you sell? And we talked about this and elaborated a little bit more. Understanding who your customers would be. Because the one thing is making sure that as business owners, we're not all over the place, but that we're more intentional when it comes to what we're going to be writing, and understanding that what is it that makes you unique, especially when it comes to putting together that government proposal. So once again, if you want to, as a panelist, we always come in and we look at who unmutes themselves first, and I call on them. Yesterday, Althea kept giving us high five, and then I finally realized that she actually wanted to add to the conversation. So I was like, great, we're doing a great job. So if anybody wants to add to this, we can just go ahead and just go into the actual initial slide. So let's go in and let's talk about understand the proposal. I think that that's one of the key things that a lot of business owners, when they come in, they're looking at something that they may not thoroughly understand. I think that this is where we have to be very intentional with what it is that we're reading and the importance of making sure that it's thorough. I never go into anything that we put together by myself. I know that Karen and I, we sit down and we talk, and the rest of the team, and we go over certain things. Why? Because there's going to be something that I may miss. There's going to be something that she may miss, or there may be something that's going to be easy for us to put together. So Karen, I want to actually throw this at you first, because we added some of the information here in regards to the RFP, RFI, and RFQ, so that if you can elaborate a little bit on that, and then we'll go ahead and we'll have Jonelle and Althea share.
Yeah, absolutely. So in my experience, when I was brand new, it was first of all understanding, what are you responding to? Is this a request for information? Is the government just doing research to figure out who's out there that may be able to do the work? Or is it an actual request for a quote or a request for a proposal, in which case you have to give them a price and you have to give them all the details. They want to know who's going to do what, where, when, how, with what tools, who have you done it for before, what's it going to cost, what's the time frame. They want to know everything. You got to pop the hood and show them all the goodies, right? So the RFI, less detail. I've done RFIs that are 2 pages long, 5 pages long, some that are 10 pages long, but I've done proposals that by the time we're done and we put in all the appendices and the resumes and attachments and the cost proposal, this is old school, they don't much do this anymore, but by the time you print it to mail it, it is 200 plus pages. And so when you're dealing with that, you definitely need to know that that's what you're dealing with up front. You don't want to jump into it. Oh yeah, I can do that. It's due in 2 weeks. Sure, no problem. If you're looking at, you got to compile 200 pages, and every word of that needs to be carefully chosen. Now, nobody in the government wants to read your 200 pages. So my advice is, please don't make it 200 pages unless there's no other way, because they're asking for so much. But read, you need to figure out what is it that you're doing. There's always a Q&A period if it's RFP or RFQ. If it's an RFI, you can still ask questions. But remember, you don't want to show up looking too stupid, especially if it's an RFP or RFQ, because you are bidding and they are evaluating you, even though it might not be in your proposals, in the back of their head. If you're asking a bunch of really dumb questions that were covered in the PDF that they posted on sam.gov or wherever it was posted, that you're seeing it. So you don't want to look too stupid. Read first, ask questions after. Clarifying questions, not "I didn't read it, so can you summarize for me" type of questions. All right.
All right. Thank you, Karen. Jonelle. See, I knew you were going to click on that, Jonelle. That's why.
I was just waiting for Karen to get finished. So yeah, I think that building on what we were talking about yesterday is the research, and that's kind of the bottom bullet point, that you have to do the research. You're responsible for the contract. It can't be somebody else. I mean, it can be somebody else, but it's got to be somebody that you trust, somebody that maybe has a little bit of experience doing this. I know I've heard Karen say before that when she determined that she wanted to get into government contracting, she built out a whole separate division or department just to handle this stuff. So it is something that you don't jump into lightly, because the federal government wants what it wants when it wants it. So deadlines are important, research is important. And to Karen's point, you have to know what you're responding to.
And thank you, Jonelle. Althea.
Yeah, and your first point there, read carefully and thoroughly. I can't stress that enough. I was just at an event last week where the head of procurement for the city of Miami talked about how she has to reject people's bids all the time because they are non-responsive to the bid, the proposals or the contract. I mean, if it says write your name, write your name. If it says sign right here, sign right there. So that's really important. And I also appreciate that it can be extremely tedious. So that's just the cost of doing business with the government, the bureaucracy. So, be in the mood to read the thing and then read it thoroughly and carefully, get help with it. My sense of things is that the proposals, whatever the government puts out, fits a paradigm. So learn to understand the paradigm. Okay, I have to read the statement of work. Maybe I don't have to read all this other stuff. I could probably skim it because it's long, but there are certain parts of these documents that the federal government, at least for sure, puts out. And you want to be cognizant of those areas, the important ones, making sure that you address everything in them. And I love what you said, Dr. Vieira, about, look, don't come to the thing pretending you've read. Now, listen, I speak as a person who has done it in 10th grade, okay? Or, you know, come to the thing pretending to have read the novel and didn't, and asking questions that elicit answers that tell you about the novel, right? That's what I did. And sometimes what I did was I read the beginning and I made sure I participated in class over the part I read. So I didn't do the rest, but if I participated heavily in the beginning, the teacher wouldn't call on me. No. This is not high school. This is real life. And if you are desirous of a contract, you have to do what is necessary to get the contract. And that includes reading and understanding what you're reading and being responsive.
Yep.
Otherwise, like Dr. Vieira mentioned, keep in mind you're dealing with people. And people oftentimes remember the extremes, right? The really great experience and the really bad experience. You want to be up here on this end, not this end, asking questions that demonstrate you didn't read.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that for a lot of people, listen, when it comes to the proposal, Cliff Notes, they're not going to help you. You have to be extremely thorough with what it is that you're doing. And this is where you have to be very intentional with the essence of, because you don't want your proposal not to be reviewed because you did not read the instruction. So when we sit back and we talk about a lot of the proposals, there's so much information out there. And that's why when we were highlighting, does the government buy what you sell and who's going to buy it? And this is where it's extremely important, where we've participated on webinars and we've sent emails to the people, the buyers, that they actually are coming in and looking for whatever request that they've made. So this is where you have to be very, very, very detailed. I know that with a lot of what things that we talk about, we organize ourselves and we look, when is the proposal due? Do we have the time to write it? What is the size of the contract? And do we have the team to come in and put it together? Karen and I, we were just on a call earlier today and we were sharing essence of what we bring to the table, what we're capable of doing. And it was a dialogue that this entity needed more resources, but we had those resources because we have an extensive team. But this is where we came in and wanted to ask questions, where a lot of people, they go in and they start putting this together, but they never look at the, I guess, the details of all of that that's there. And that's where a lot of people, unfortunately, make the mistakes because they're not being thorough. And you need to be definitely thorough and focused, understanding. And not every RFP or RFI or RFQ is going to have the same requirements, because depending on state, local, and federal, there's going to be different requirements for what you want to submit. Althea.
I'm looking at who is buying what you sell. Now, it's really important that you are spending your time appropriately and effectively. Now, if you just want practice with submitting responses to government overtures, okay, you could do that. I mean, it's a way to spend your time, okay? But obviously, I hope it's obvious, you shouldn't be spending your time responding to requests that are not up your alley, right? Or don't really speak to your strengths as a business, because that's just a phenomenal waste of your time, right? So a lot of times I've looked in SAM.gov and seen proposal, requests and contract opportunities. That's what I'll call them, contract opportunities. And you can see where a small business or a business might have one thing they could do of the 5 things being asked for. They want 5 things, you only do 1. I'm thinking you better find a partner to do the other 4 for you. Otherwise, putting in a submission is a waste of time. So just be mindful of that, and don't be afraid of losing an opportunity so that you scramble for anything. I hope that made sense. Wait for the right opportunity to come along and put your energy in that instead of scrambling around, grabbing. It's kind of like, those game shows where they put the person in the phone booth or whatever, and the money's flying all over the place. Have you ever noticed they hardly ever get anything?
Yep. Because they didn't strategize. Because the first thing they should have done was pull out their shirt and let the money just flow into their shirt and then cover it into that.
Just saying. There's a strategy and you should use one.
I so agree with everything that Althea just said. And I think, we covered yesterday in that webinar a lot about researching the marketplace and understanding, but it needed to be reiterated, because don't be bidding on something if it's not the right place, if they don't really buy what you sell and you're trying to put a square peg in a round hole, you're not going to get awarded. So don't waste your time. And sometimes the timing is off. There have been times where there's a contract and it's perfect for me, but I am busy. Like right now, I'm in the midst of bidding on a contract for NIH, and NIH is kind of my sweet spot. And if something were to come along right now and it was, Department of Transportation, Army, whatever, they're not my sweet spot. And I am busy. I'm bidding a $10 million opportunity. I need to keep focused, put my head down, and get this one done correctly, so that it is a winning proposal. So something might come along, but the timing is off. I will say no to that. So you got to understand, and then know your competition, because before I start writing, I want to know, who do I think is going to bid this? Who's the incumbent? Who has this contract right now or had it before? I want to understand them. How much? Go into fpds.gov, and if you know the name of the incumbent, you can find that contract. If you know it's for whatever agency, whatever office, whatever department, whatever NAICS codes, you can narrow down and figure it out. And then, okay, how much did the government spend with them in that contract over what period of time? And look at their website. Do they have a website? Are they a small business? Are they still able to bid this? Because I only bid usually small business set-asides. I'm not going to compete against Deloitte and Leidos Biomedical and, big giant corporations that are worth billions of dollars. So is the incumbent still a small business? FPDS, Camila, I see your message. I have the chat open as I'm talking. It's fpds.gov is where you would go to do your research. And I know Althea brought up that website yesterday in terms of looking to see who has what contracts for what dollar amounts. FPDS is the place you would go. So you want to know the competition, because sometimes I make a no bid decision, not because I can't do the work. I can do the work. But when I see who's going to be bidding it or who has it already, if it's an 8A set aside and they're still 8A and the government's happy with them, they've done a tremendous amount of work and it was done well, why am I going to waste my time writing 20, 50, however many pages of proposal to compete against somebody I know I cannot unseat them? I might go in and offer my services as a subcontractor, but I'm not going to bid against them if I can't show up better than they do. So that's my 2 cents worth on this topic.
All right, thank you,
And
Joe.
I'm gonna go quick, Orlando. Yeah, so the great thing about contracting at the city, county, state, or federal level is that all the information for those that have won bids before, who've gotten the contracts, is available. Dr. Karen mentioned FPDS, which is Federal Procurement Database System. That is giving you past information. SAM.gov is where you're going to find the contracting opportunities that are currently available. The individual agencies' websites will give you their forecasts, what they think about putting out in the marketplace in the coming year. So all of that research is something that's very important, and the timing's important. If you know that there's a contract that might be coming available, that's a win on your side, and there's different things and resources and tools you can use for that. But what you want to make sure is that once you've narrowed down your targeted agencies that you want to work with, then go back and look through the past stuff to see how long has it been since they've issued a contract for what you're offering as a product or service. It's possible that, we write bundled contracts, things that are bundled together, different products and services, so that we can write less contracts, but reach still the goal of what the agency's needs are. So timing is important because there's off ramps and on ramps. You've got to look at who's the incumbent is. And I say get to know your competition, because your competition today could be your partner for tomorrow, because you can always think about teaming agreements. If you can't fulfill, as Althea said, everything in the contract, you need to look at a situation where you assess your business and find out where you may have some gaps that others can fill in.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And we're not going to spend too much time on this slide because we did highlight some of the things, but the key is making sure that as a business owner that you are registered with specific sites, depending on what contract you want to go after. If you are looking to do federal, definitely you go into sam.gov. If you want to do state, and if you're located here in Florida, you can definitely register with My Florida. But the one thing that we want to make sure that you understand, and Karen highlighted this earlier, when you look at what makes sense to you, if you do have that certification, it's not going to be a guarantee that you're going to get the contract, but you have to understand what your sweet spot is and go after something. Someone actually asked a question about should they work with someone as a subcontractor. This is why relationships are important, because you may not want to come in. I don't want to come in and be the prime on any contract. I prefer coming in and working with someone else and helping out, because I think that that's where it makes sense for me. But this is where, as a business owner, you have to understand where you need to be registered and who you want to work with. Simplify it. Don't go all over the place and think that you need to be registered with everybody, because if you can't provide the work, you're going to be overwhelmed with the amount of email you're going to be getting by way of request. Althea.
Yeah, the one thing I like to say about certifications is they only matter to the people they matter to. So if your business target doesn't care about certification of any kind, don't get any. However, if you're coming to the federal marketplace, if you're coming to the federal marketplace and you're a small business, you don't have to get certified. Over 99% of all businesses in America are small by SBA standards. So there's nobody certifying 32.5 million small businesses. Okay, so you don't have to be certified to get started in federal contracting. However, since the federal government does care about doing business with women, veterans, minorities, 8As, HUBZone, etc., you could get a certification which will add leverage for you in that marketplace. But again, if you're dealing with someone who doesn't care about certifications, you don't have to get any. But I will say, at the local level, it is imperative that you get certified as a small business owner, because their standards are much smaller than ours. So calling yourself a small business at the local and state level is going to be insufficient to establish that you're a small business. So remember, certifications only matter to the people they matter to. And if it matters to them, you better get what they like and get lots of it. That will help you. Thanks.
Yeah, and I know that Jonelle and Karen and Althea, they've been answering some of your questions in the chat. So if you have questions, put them in there. Some will ask live, we'll answer live, and some will just answer in the chat to be mindful of time. So go ahead, Dr. Vieira.
You know that you can just call me Karen, stop playing. So in terms of your registrations and certifications, depending what you're bidding, sometimes they want to see proof. Like I know a lot of times with city, county, and sometimes even state, they want to see proof. So make sure if they ask for that, you include it in your proposal. You need, like if it's set aside as a 8.8, you're not 8.8, you can't bid it with, you know, or if it's, you know, county and it's set aside for women-owned small businesses, usually it says WSC, or WBE, sorry, or MBE, which is minority business enterprise, like whatever it says it is, you have to be that, and you have to show that you're that. So as you're reading through and you're figuring these things out, when you're putting together your proposal to bid on it, you have to include everything they ask for. So if they're asking, are you registered with a business as a small business with the county, you have to show that you are, show that registration, show that certification. So these are things that are really important when you're putting together a winning proposal. You have to meet all their requirements. And like, it depends on your industry, what they would specifically be asking for. But I know I did a bid recently, earlier this year with a partner, and they were asking, you have to show that you're certified and accredited with this specific agency. If you didn't have it, you just weren't eligible to win the contract. It was that simple. So it's like, we looked at it, we could do the work, but neither one of our companies was accredited with that specific agency. We had to pass on it. So you could put together the world's best proposal, but if you don't have the specific registration of the specific certification, you're not going to win it. Don't waste your time. This is why the first slide said, read carefully. Yeah.
Very thorough. And I know Althea,
One
you
more.
keep confusing me because I think
Yeah.
keep thinking you're getting a high five.
No, this is how I do the high five.
Okay,
Like
and then
that.
Jonelle.
Okay. So listen really quickly, and I mean, you know, we can go to the next slide, but if Janelle's comments are not on this one, but I'm working with a company right now who has historically said they were woman-owned. They're waiting on their certification from SBA. They put that they're woman-owned. Don't you know, they don't have their certification from us, and they bid on a contract for woman-owned set aside, and their competitor dimed them out to SBA and to the contracting office. So on the off chance government doesn't notice, your competitors will dime you out. So make sure you have what you're supposed to have. Otherwise, you're wasting time, which is the same thing as wasting money. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I was gonna add on that. Yeah. Karen said, you know, if they're asking to see whether or not you're certified with the county, provide them that certification. Don't make the assumption that a county entity, a city entity, a state entity, or a federal entity will go and check for your certifications. If it's listed that that's something that's a requirement, you need to provide it. This is a lot of ways. Think of it as when you're going for a loan, you're giving documentation to make it easier for the lender to say yes. Same thing with a contractor. If you can make it easier for them to say, yes, she's ticking all the boxes or he's ticking all the boxes and their business is actually eligible for this, they don't have to go and look for items. The one that makes it the easiest is the one that's going to probably seem more favorable to the contracting agency.
Yep, 100%. So this is where, as a business owner, you're going to evaluate your bandwidth. What is it that you have? So this is more so taking inventory of what you have. Do you have a capability statement? Who is in your network and who can you actually submit a proposal with? How can you market? Do you have any past performances, or are you bringing someone along that has past performances? The other thing is funding. Do you have the money to fulfill the actual contract? And how do you build relationships? This is going to be something that's going to be a little bit more internal for you, because we've talked about that. We've talked about, you know, Karen is actually, you know what, partner with other entities. I've done the exact same thing. Relationships are key. to making sure that your business, you can take it to the next level. I want to be mindful of the time with this, and this is more so for you to understand. I don't know if one of you wanted to share something quickly so we can go to the next slide, because I want to be mindful of getting, okay, Dr.
I do want to share it super briefly, like, as you're looking, do I have the bandwidth to even bid on this specific RFP or RFQ? You know, how much of this stuff do you have already put together? Because one of the things I mentioned earlier is, you know, bidding really big contracts where you end up with a 200-page proposal. That's easy. That's easy for me because I've been doing it for years, and I can pull a piece from here, a piece from there. Like, I already wrote this up for this previous contract. I have this in this previous bid. You know, Orlando and I do it all day long. He'll call me, hey, this place wants a proposal. Oh yeah, let's pull that old proposal. We edit 2 things and it's ready to go. Now, if you don't have things already prepared, you don't have that kind of marketing, you don't have past performance, meaning you haven't done this exact same thing for somebody before, and you don't have it ready to go, like you haven't thought about how would I show that I've done the work. Now, I'm in the writing business, we can show, here's a link to an actual website where something is published that we wrote, or here's a screenshot of a document like in a journal that's published. What do? You do construction? Do you have photos? Do you do, you know, are you selling a product? Do you have testimonials of how that product performs? Like, how do you show past performance? Do you have that ready to go to just plug and play and say, yeah, this is due in 2 weeks. Can I turn this around in 2 weeks with my current workload? Plus I have to sit and get this proposal together. So you've got to really evaluate what you have. And then relationships are key, right? Like, if you've never spoken to this agency, never spoken to anybody in this office, you don't know the contracting officer, you're coming in like ice cold. Is it worth it? It's better if you've been tracking this opportunity, you've reached out before, you've asked some questions. Hey, is this coming out this year? We're interested. You responded to an RFI. Hey, we're capable of doing this work. That's how I got my first contract. I responded to the RFI. I showed up looking really good in the RFI because I pointed out some things that they didn't know, or, you know, because they only know what they know. They have blinders on. I'm an expert in the industry, been doing this 17 years, you know, in my business, but many, many years before that in corporate jobs and academic jobs. So show up as the expert, tell them stuff that they didn't know. They go, oh, that's cool. And then I see my write-up from the RFI copied and pasted into the RFP. That's how you know you got your foot in the door. That's a relationship. That's a door opener. Jonelle's laughing at my sound effects. So these are things that you want to have in place. If you have nothing, right? RFI comes out, you never even wrote a capability statement before, you have nothing to pull from, you're going to be doing it from scratch. If you have that capability internally, go for it. But if you don't, like, you have to stop what you're doing, like selling your existing product and service to do this, and there's no guarantees that it's going to make any money. It's an investment, a long-term investment. Do you have the bandwidth to really jump in and support that?
Yeah, and thank you. And Althea, I know that you added there in the chat about the capability statement and so forth. So make sure people read the chat. Some great questions being asked and some great answers as well. Go ahead, Althea, and then Jonelle.
I was just going to say that same thing. Go ahead, Janelle.
All right, Jonelle.
I was just going to say, I wanted Karen to say what she said yesterday about the funding piece of it and assessing whether or not you have the funding. Because again, Althea and I are talking from the government level, but Karen's talking from a small business level, which is why this is an impactful webinar to you to be here, because she's done it. She's been through it. She's made the mistakes and now wants you to learn from her successes.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to evaluating a possible contract, what is it going to cost you? Because it's not just putting together the proposal. I'm not talking about just that. That's an internal burden, yes. And for me, I have writers and proposal managers and whatever, their salaries being paid. But also, once I get that contract, how much money am I going to have to spend on salaries, or if you sell a product, on product? And then once the government receives it and they approve it, you invoice at the end of each month, that gets approved, and then the clock starts ticking 30 days. So they have to pay that invoice. The good news is it's only 30 days. I work for some pharma companies that are 60, 90, 120. They really try to rake us over the coals. So the government's awesome. Small businesses, they do pay us in 30 days. And if they're late, they will pay you with interest. But you got to make it to that 30 days. So from the time that contract gets issued, you've got people on the clock, or you've got products that you have to pay out of your pocket to purchase. And then how long is it going to be until you get paid back? My business has a line of credit, so I'm not over here stressing about it, because I know if I don't have the money in the bank, I've got money in the bank because I've got the line of credit. If you don't have a line of credit, you've got to really be cognizant of, can I afford this? I've seen people literally bankrupt their business, end up going out of business because they tried to do a contract that they couldn't afford. Don't grow too fast. You've got to, as Orlando says, stay in your lane, do what you can do, but don't try to be somebody else that you can't be. You got to grow slowly. You don't want to grow too fast.
100%. Althea.
I just wanted to touch on, I just was paying attention to these bullets you've got here. This is great stuff. Okay. So one of the things that small business owners often miss is you exist. How does anybody else know that? Right? So if you're going to have your business, people have to know that you are there and that what you're doing. So your capability statement helps you with that, in as much as it is a marketing tool that you can send to contracting officers and buying activities to let them know that you exist. But you've also got to work a network. You've got to build those relationships with potential prime contractors. They've got to know you. Remember, I said yesterday, people do business with people they know, like, and trust. If no one knows you, how are they going to like you, much less trust you? Okay, so you've got to get out there. You've got to market your business. You've got to network. You've got to be where the action is. Look, sometimes, I ask questions I already know the answer to. Not because I don't know the answer, but because I want to be known. I want someone to say, oh, wow, that was a great question. Who is that woman? I mean, I know me, right? But I have a job to do. I need to market the SBA. So even if I go to an event and I'm not on the dais or the platform, I raise my hand and ask a question I know the answer to, or I solicit people right where I'm standing so that I can get people to come to me. A lot of business owners go to events never mentioning their name, never mentioning their business, never mentioning what they do, never mentioning their value proposition, never collecting a card, never giving a card. Come on now. What are you doing? Just getting some fresh air? Okay, but you can get some fresh air outside your front door. You don't have to get in your car and go somewhere and not tell people who you are. So please do that. It's a crime not to. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that that's extremely important to understand the dynamics of how do you come in and start doing what you can do. So this is where a lot of times business owners tend to overcomplicate. A lot of what you're looking for, it's already online. If you don't start researching, one of the key things that I have learned is that if I need to go to school to learn something, I can go and watch YouTube, because YouTube videos, people will put content up there. They will put information. People will explain the basics of doing certain things. There's webinars. I know that Tony has been sharing the link, the URL of specifically where a lot of these workshops live, or webinars that we've done in the past. But all of that information is out there. But a lot of times as business owners, we don't ask questions. And you need to start asking more questions and being more specific when it comes to what it is that you're doing, because there are so many opportunities out there. But this is one of the key things that you have to make sure. Take advantage of the opportunities that you have there. If people don't know you, to Althea's point, how do they know that you're that good? If you are not going into the market and start making sense and start talking and start building relationship, I've connected with people at events where I come in and I just stand right there and I'm like, hey, listen, can I connect with you on LinkedIn? I also use my personality because I've got a great name, Orlando. So I'm usually Orlando in Miami, but I go in in Orlando, I'm Orlando in Orlando, Orlando in Jacksonville, what have you. But I use that to my actual an advantage, because I think that that's one of the key things. So when you understand that, so when you go online, how much information have we been able to research, Karen? How many times have we been able to go online and look at some of these websites that give us the answers that we have been looking for and give us evidence of what someone did in the past to actually acquire a contract?
Yeah, one of the things I'll say
sorry, Karen, go ahead.
When I'm writing a proposal, right, one of the things that I want to do is be as detailed as possible. This is not the time to be shy, and this is not the time to be brief. You want to be brief, meaning not long-winded, but you don't want to be brief, meaning you don't want to leave out important information, because this is your only shot to show them that you understand what they need, you understand what they're dealing with in their office, you can meet their needs, maybe even go above and beyond to bring additional value. And here's why they can trust you, because you've done it before for this person and this company and this office and this agency and this organization, and you know how to do it. And here's why they know how to do it, because you explain how it's done, the timeline, who needs to be involved, who are the experts on your team that are going to be handling which different parts of it. So there's a lot of detail that goes into it. Now, when I'm doing anything, I am researching like nobody's business, because I'm reading all the website of the office that put out this RFP or RFQ or RFI that I'm responding to. What is their mission? What's their vision? What's their current goals? What are they working on? What are they putting out as news or press releases? What's happening in their world? Who's the head of the team? Who are the different people in that office? Is there a staff? In my sphere, I want to know, is the whole staff PhD scientists, MDs? They have a master's in public health? Because I want to know who I'm speaking to. These are the people that are going to evaluate my proposal. I need to speak their language. Who am I talking to? I'm on their LinkedIn. I'm looking at what they published. I'm looking at, okay, what programs are they funding? What are the different things that are happening in their world, so that I can speak directly to them with my proposal. There's no amount of evidence that's too much, other than if you're over the page limit. If you're over the page limit, they're not going to evaluate. If they say it's a 15-page limit, they're not evaluating past page 15. Page 16 is thrown out the window. So there's too much in terms of the page limit, but there's not too much in terms of the amount of detail and the richness and the depth that you can provide in your proposal.
Oh my gosh, when you said page 16 is thrown out, that just made me think, yeah, all the important stuff up front. The throwaway details you can put in the back. But listen, it is people who check out these evaluations and people who make decisions. Not everybody's built the same. Some people skim, some people read the beginning, some people read the first chapter of the book and the last chapter of the book. Anybody been there? Yes, I was in high school too. I'm just saying. I love that put the important stuff up front. So the person who's losing steam on your proposal hasn't missed the most important stuff.
100%. Jonelle.
Well, yeah, to tell you the truth, if they're asking for 15 pages, you give them 16, they may not even look at your proposal. So you need to follow the guidelines, like we said on the very first slide. The other thing is, Althea mentioned people. It is about people, and there are people here to help you. We're putting up a lot of different resources, a lot of different websites that you may not be familiar with. And the way you get familiar is tapping into the resources that we have. Althea put it in the chat that the SBDC at FIU, who's hosting this, but is in fact a statewide and nationwide entity, they have business consultants that are there to help you get your feet wet in government contracting in whatever way, whether it's local, state, or federal. There was also another question I just want to answer. I know Althea and I, we work in different offices. I'm in Jackson, she's in Miami, but We do our best to get you a response to emails fairly quickly at the district level. I can tell you that if you're going to talk to someone about an application for 8A or some other certification, I can't think you're going to get the same turnaround time there. But we try to get you a 24-hour response to any email that comes into our.
And thank you. So this is one of the key things that we talked about, and we've been talking about since when we initially started, writing the winning proposal. One of the key things, and I know that I saw Ebony, you actually highlighted that you are a grant writer, and you can attest to that, because I think that that's one of the key things. There are certain people that are good at what they do. And when you're that thorough, I laugh because I always say that Jonelle has an eagle eye for information when she comes in and looks at certain things. And I'm like, yeah, I can't do that, because it goes back to playing on our strength. So as business owners, when you come in and you start looking at the specifics, you have to look and operate the way that you can. A lot of times when Karen and I and team, we're working on a proposal, we're going through and we put everything together and start highlighting what needs to be filled. And we actually use Google Drive, and we're looking at real-time content information, what's missing, who's going to do what, who needs to gather information and so forth, because it's a team effort. And we do it as a team effort because there may be certain things that once I read that I may say, hey, Karen, we might need to add this, or maybe Karen reads and pulls something from something that we've done previous in the past. But the one thing is very simple. We've been given opportunities to bid on things, and the easiest thing that we've been able to say is no, because we can't do the work. People come in and they want to say, oh, you get your first contract and you make millions. If you cannot do the work, you need to be very candid with yourself. And I always say it, and Karen just made mention of it, stay in your lane. There are opportunities out there for you to take advantage of. And I know that that you've been getting a lot of information. Tony's been putting their registration. I know that yesterday we got people from Jacksonville, from Orlando, Tampa, all over the state, and Puerto Rico as well. Just go in there and register if you need more help and guidance from the SBDC, and they will come in and they will actually allocate you to your respectable SBDC, depending on where you're at. So listen, we're doing good on time. I want to make sure that we answer this question and get all of this taken care of, and then we can provide some other additional resources. So it's a free-for-all. Whoever wants to go first. You know what? Oh, Karen.
You know, I'm dying to. You know, this is my slide. This is my stuff right here. So when you're actually writing, these are the things that you need to keep in mind. We already talked about reading the whole thing. Usually when I read, I make notes. If it's a PDF, I actually put those stickies or those comments on the actual PDF, so that when I go back through as I'm writing, I can see my notes that I made in there. And I highlight, these are the things that are important. Some people do this on paper still. I have some people I work with as partners, team partners, that they'll be like, yeah, I have it right here. And they literally do like this and show me a stack of papers. Like they just printed the whole PDF and they have it like highlighted and their little notes in the margin. Whatever works for you to win this thing, okay? But you have to be able to remember all the details that are in there and what you're going to do with each of those pieces. Now, the most important thing, if you don't hear anything else I say right now, structure your proposal based on their evaluation criteria. Unless they gave you specific headings, use the headings of what they are evaluating you based on. Like Althea said, these are people, right? Some people have bigger attention spans than others. If they have a checklist and they have to give you points, and their points are, you know, I have to give you 10 points based on you have the facilities and equipment to do this contract, but you have no heading that says facilities and equipment. You just talk about it wherever willy-nilly. They don't know how to find that when they're trying to score you. So they need the actual evaluation criteria to be pointed out to them. This is my facilities section. This is my past performance section. This is my key personnel section. Whatever they called it, I don't reinvent the wheel. I copy and paste their words into my proposal. Do not reinvent anything. Don't try to give it new clever names. Oh, the government employees, they called it wrong. I'm gonna tell them how you're supposed to call. No, please use their words. Because that's what's on their checklist in front of them that they're scoring you on. So this is like an exam. You're trying to pass the exam. Don't answer questions that the teacher didn't ask you. You only answer the questions that were asked. So you have to address every single point they're evaluating you on in as much detail as you have space to do and you have information. Don't be long-winded and boring, because if they have 25 proposals to evaluate, you're going to lose points if you're making them read through a whole bunch of fluff. They don't want some chat GPT generated content that's talking all around the world, but does not get to the point and is vague and ambiguous. And maybe some of it's not even correct because chat GPT makes stuff up. So tell them what they need to hear, tell them the details of it, but be succinct and to the point. Now, you do want to go into as much details about how you are going to do this. They want to know who's doing it, when they're doing it, how they're doing it, what equipment they need to do it, what experience they have doing it, what everything. Give them every single thing. I go through checklists. These are the things that we do. First, we're going to do this. Step 2, we do that. Step 3, here's our quality control process. Like, I let them see our whole internal process, because this is a confidential document and you can mark it as such. So they're not sharing it with your competitors. They will share that they awarded it to you. But if there's stuff that you don't want them to see because you're afraid that a competitor is going to get it, then government is probably not for you anyways, just being honest, because government tends to be an open environment when it comes to these types of things.
Right.
All right. I know that was a lot, but just
Thank
remember.
you, but that's all right. But listen, keep that, what do you call it? Your ideas created. I'm going to actually ask you a question when we wrap up. Althea.
This slide is so good. This slide is so good. You do what it says, you're going to be good to go. I was thinking as you were talking, and I put in the chat, that, look, just use the checklist if there is one. Don't try to school us, like Dr. Vieira said, on, we got this wrong or whatever. Speak our language. You want to make it, as Janelle wrote, easy as possible for us. Now, I have had, over the course of my career, the opportunity to read responses to, say, grant applications. And when folks follow the guidelines articulated by the grant request, it was so much easier for me to evaluate their lengthy proposals. People who made me hunt and round the proposal to some of these evaluation points, like they're multiple points. And I'm like, I know I saw that they said that, but did they really? I'm not sure. And you know what? After a while of frustration, I'm a human being. I'm not looking anymore. I'm not going to look. Follow the guidelines there. Structure your proposal the way the government did. Make it easy for the evaluator, and you're going to score high points. That's my recommendation, because at the end of the day, I promise you, it's people. You're dealing with people. And I was just now transparent and vulnerable about my shortcomings. And I don't read evaluations for a living. Maybe the ones who do have far more stamina than I do. They have far more patience than I do. I don't know. But I just tend to believe that people are people. So just do your part on your end so that you don't have to worry about the fact that somebody's tired or frustrated or having a bad day when they get to your proposal. Thanks.
Thank you, Jonelle.
I don't have much to say. Just, the one bullet point that sticks out to me is don't bid if you can't do the work. The worst thing you can do is get a contract. And as Karen said on a previous slide, You don't have the financial wherewithal or the resources to be able to do that, but you wanted to go in and do it. We mentioned yesterday, it used to be that the government awarded contracts for the lowest bidder. Now it's lowest and most technically capable. So the person that has the lowest bid isn't always the one that wins the bid. You have the ability to get a debrief afterwards to find out. Obviously, there's a lot of information stored on our websites to tell you who won, how they won, what they bid. You're not going to see everybody else's bid, just the winning bid. But again, you don't want to get into this and get into a situation where you cannot perform, because getting a bad review, and they do review the contracts. There's a system to do that. It will keep you from getting more contracts. You need to have a plan, have a strategy moving forward, and make sure that you execute on it.
Exactly. And make sure that whatever it is that you do, it works for the way that you process information. And make sure that what you do, I come in, and if I'm ever working on anything, I have a checkbox. This is done, check. Did I do this? Check. This is done, check, check. Because that's one of the key things, is having a game plan. And if you have that game plan, it is going to be so much easier for you. So what I want to do, I'm going to move some slides forward. You're all going to get a copy of the slide and a link of the presentation as well. So we added some additional information. I'm looking at the time. There's some additional resources there for you. Look at this on your own time. We're not going to go through this. We want to make sure we have a hard stop by 2. There's some other content that we have there, but we want to make sure that you have our contact information here. I know that Tony's been putting it in the chat, but one of the key things, all right, so key takeaways. Okay, we've all have given you our LinkedIn profile. If you want to connect with us, you have our email, you have Twitter, you have a lot of information that we put in there, but make sure that you ask questions. Don't overcomplicate this. So last words of encouragement, all right, before we go ahead and I wrap up with a message. All right, Althea.
You can do this. You can do this. Follow the instructions, and please, please, really don't chase every contract. Be deliberate and strategic and patient, and you will win. Thanks.
100%. All right, Jonelle.
Yeah, I agree with Althea. It can be done. You've got to have a plan. You've got to have a strategy. They say that those that fail to plan to fail. You want to be serious about this, because once you get into government contract, it can be ultra lucrative. You can make a dynamic network that will, sustain your business even after you're gone in the business. But you've got to have the plan and the strategy, and you don't have to do it alone. We've mentioned many resources here. You can count all 4 of us as a resource as well. So if you have any questions, reach out, because we know you don't know what you don't know.
Thank you. And Dr. Vieira.
Yeah, I would say go slow. Like, a lot of people want to go so fast, right? Go slow. Like, take your time, figure out, what are you bidding? Why are you bidding this? Are you the right one to bid it? Because I have heard of companies that have submitted 200 bid proposals and have won 0 of them. That is a huge fat waste of your time. So slow down. Figure out your strategy before you're just out there bidding like shotgun approach. Like, that doesn't work. You need to be laser focused, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. You're looking at contracts that are 3, 4, 5 years in scope sometimes. So slow down, pick the right ones, get it right, win them, and then you're in the money for 5 years if you did it correctly. So slow down. In order to go fast and grow fast, you've got to slow down when it comes to government contracting.
Now, 100%. And one of the key things is, thank you, everybody, for sharing information and so forth. Follow instructions. That's all that you can do. Don't overthink it, and just follow instructions, because the proposal will tell you specifically what they're asking for, and always give it to someone else to review and look at. So next week on the 31st, we actually have another workshop. It's going to be Build Your Marketing Mindset. That one is going to be at 10 a.m. from 10 till 11. So make sure that if you haven't registered, I know that Tony went ahead and he shared that. And we also have a couple of follow-up workshops. We're going to do a workshop on breathe life into your brand. And we're also going to talk about guerrilla marketing, one of my favorites. So with that being said, thank you. Make sure you connect with us on behalf of the SBDC. If you don't have a consultant working with you, make sure that you register. So thank you to all of our panelists, Althea, Jonelle, Dr. Karen Vieira, and looking forward to seeing everyone at the next presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.